Hello and welcome to the Tarkus Zone. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about the game RivenWorld, and it's the countdown to the beta weekend. And I figured I'd get a early start this week, maybe do a few videos pre-beta to get people excited or get the word out that it is going to be this weekend. I'm here on their Steam page. Go to their Steam page. You'll be able to see some information, some newer information they've posted. The combat land claiming and building system is something that's new. You always could go over to the community hub and go to discussions and then ask questions. The developer actually posed a question, what are you excited about? Well, what I'm excited about actually with this game is a few aspects of the game that I like is the building aspect. I like building things. I like working in a group. I like games where you have to grind a lot. I like grindy games. I've played hours and hours in New World, Lost Ark, Elder Scrolls Online, all the way back to the WoW days. I like grinding. I like doing a lot of things. I like a game that you have a lot of things to do, and you don't have to be pigeonholed into doing, 5 particular things to get ahead. I like games where you can actually plot your own course. Like if you want to go cut trees down, and that's your thing, you go cut trees down. If you want to be a miner, that's your thing, you go mine for a while. And if you just want to be a builder and you want to build things, you can do that. Now this game's going to have like a RuneScape backbone. And so basically, if you're familiar with the scaling or leveling system in RuneScape, then you'll be familiar with how your character will develop within RivenWorld. Now, I haven't got my hands on the product yet, so I can't really tell you much about my thoughts or, of the smoothness of the combat. I only can tell you by watching the dev streams that it looks smooth. But really, I won't know until I can slam my fingers on a keyboard and then see what's going on the screen. I mean, I hope this weekend I'll be able to test various parts of the game. But I do have concerns that the beta test is only 2 days. And there might be aspects of the game that can't be tested because there's no way to accumulate the levels needed or the grinding process needed to achieve the testing parts of it, I guess is what I'm saying. So let's say if the system has if their game has a tiering system where you have to do something and get a certain level to unlock something else. And then when you unlock that something else, there's things you need to do. Well, I'm hoping there's enough time within the beta, if those mechanics exist, that we can be able to test it all. You know what I mean? And, it comes back to the days of WoW, World of Warcraft, when they had a pretty smooth game, but then when it came to endgame, in the beginning of their creation, it wasn't done well. And the thing about it was there was no way to test that prior to release because no one had ever achieved that part of the game in all the alpha and beta tests that they did in the past. So that's, you're going to have this regardless of what game you play, but especially this type of game where you have to skill up your character to do things in a game, especially if they're, if the whole system is around the RuneScape model. If you played RuneScape, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go back to the all thing here and actually go back to the store page. They haven't put down yet how much the game's going to cost. I'm assuming that they're going to wait until after beta to see where they're at, how much more development they're going to need to do after beta, because if things go well, then they can add aspects of the games that are in the game. And if it doesn't go well, then they're going to be going in and whacking gremlins for at least a few weeks, depending on what's reported in beta. That might not be working as anticipated, right? I mean, if we go play the beta and we find that there's a few major issues and we report those issues can be resolved, but that's development time needed to fix those, and the newer content is not developed normally during the process that you're fixing bugs, because you need to resolve the buggy issues before you're thinking of dropping new content. And that's usually the norm. I have seen developers drop new content even though they haven't even addressed bugs, and those games become dumpster fires, because what it is their new content gets released, and sometimes that causes more bugs, and you got the bugs that you had before, and then when they finally fix these older bugs, then it messes up the whole new content system. So when it comes to game design and game management and keeping player base happy, you as a developer, you got to figure out what bugs are game killing bugs and address those timely and quickly. And if you have, want to introduce horses and you want to introduce NPCs or whatnot, you probably want to hold off to that until you get your core game flushed out. And yes, you might lose some players because they're going to say, oh, there's nothing to do in your game. But I'd rather be nothing to do and have a good foundation. It's like building a house. Have a good foundation, make sure things are working as expected, and then add your new content. Because normally, the things that really mess a game up are things where the interaction of players seems unfair. And I'm not talking about balancing of weapons. There's some games where, or there's something in the game that gives another player an advantage because they're taking advantage of basically a bug, which is not a feature, but would a bug or something that should not happen. I'll use an example of Fallout 76. I played Fallout 76 on day one, as soon as it came out. Within day 3, I was level 168 in 3 days. Everybody on my server was like level 12. And they're like, how did you do that? Well, Tarkus found a loophole in their system. And Tarkus reported that loophole, and I thought they would fix it timely. So Tarkus created a macro and stood there at that loophole, and within hours was 168th level. And so I told the developer, I don't mind you put my level back to 1, I'll start over again. That's not a problem for me, but you really need to address this problem. Well, days and weeks go by, and Tarkus is like almost 200th level, because Tarkus sits there and just tries, and then finally I do a video on it. And only then, when hundreds of people watched my video and said, oh crap, I'm going to go do that, then they actually fixed the game. So one person, me, reported the problem. They ignored me, and it wasn't until I made it public that, look guys, you can stand here and write a little macro, here's how you do it, and you can just gain levels in minutes, and you don't have to do anything. And it wasn't until that was shown to the general public that they actually fixed their game. So that's why Tarkus normally now records everything he finds that's broken in games, so that there's not weeks and weeks and weeks of the developer ignoring something that they don't think is a problem, which becomes a major problem. And I've done this in various games in the past, where I'll find a bug and I'll just make a small little video that replicates the bug, and then I send it to the development team. And so, a video speaks louder than me typing it out, right? Because in a video, I can show them step by step by step what's going on. And I've always done that with games. Did that with Frozen Flame. When I found problems, I did video, put it on my page. This video is for the developer to fix this problem. And I make it public so that the developer can see it and the public can see it, so that there is actually kind of two pressures going on there. And some people get frustrated with me sometimes. Well, Tarkus, you're showing people how to cheat the game, and you're making it wide known, and that's not good for the game. And it's like, well, I report it timely, and the fact being is if the developer wants to fix it, they have the ability to fix it. This is, it's within their power to fix it. And if they find that it's game crushing, and I've shown it to the general public, then they're more apt to fixing it, right? Because I just learned in the past that until more and more people find that Easter egg or that problem with the game that gives you an advantage, and that goes back to my original point, is when it comes to beta testing, if people feel that it's not an equal playing field or there's some advantage that somebody is getting through a loophole or a bug, those are the kinds of things that get flushed out during a beta, so that when the thing releases, you don't got somebody like Tarkus that's 168th level in 3 hours. You know what I mean? So I kind of went on a tangent there, but let's move on to this. I want to bring over their Discord just to show you what they've got here on their Discord. You should join their Discord. If you go to the Steam page, you can join it. I'll put the link in my description below for the Discord for them. Here they've added this beta sign up, so it tells you what the date is. It's starting on the 24th, so it's going to, I think it's going to be 8 p.m. my time, Eastern time zone, and it's going to go until the 27th. At 1 a.m. Eastern time zone. You fill out the form. It's not a complicated form, and that's the only way you're going to be able to get into the beta. During the closed beta, we're going to be looking to gather critical feedback, bugs, server performance, and gameplay feel. That's what I was talking about in the early parts of this video, that, you know, at least they know what they're looking for, what they need to address. Timeline for closed beta. Okay, we already read that. We'll also be... I will also be active in Discord throughout the testing, in Discord voice chat to answer questions and chats with everyone. Well, that's good of the developer to make themselves available. My only hope is that the developer doesn't get overwhelmed with boom, 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 boom. You know, the question. I mean, I've been in question and answer voice chats in Discord with developers before, and it becomes overwhelming, so they spend more of their time basically talking in voice chat, which is okay, but they're not in the game actually looking at what's going on. So there's a balance there where the developer should be. It's like when I did VR, when I did Worlds in VR, I could go in admin mode and I could look at how people interacted with my product. I could fly in a mode where I could see what was going on with my product. And I could go to various locations and see how people were interacting with my world, my product. And I'm hoping that the developer will have time just to smell the roses and go around and see what everyone is doing and not be stifled into a voice chat conversation for 3 days with people with good intent. I mean, people. I'm not saying people are not good intent when they have questions, they have concerns, or they want to say something. I usually wait until, I mean, I'll say things as I see them, but when I end a beta, that's when I kind of put my top 5 together, because I always felt in management, I was an information technologies director for many years. I always felt in management that you bring 5 problems at a time. Let's solve 5 problems at a time. And you got to pick and choose your 5 problems. Just like when you have a conversation with somebody, you usually talk about a couple topics only. When you expand the topics to 5 or 6 or 7, 8 topics, people just forget what we're talking about, right? I mean, people don't remember the entire conversation. So I always find to make sure that people retain their memory, making sure they remember what you were talking about. And if, especially during that conversation, you have them going and doing things for you, giving them 5 tasks, whatever they may be, usually, you know, not 100 lists of, this is all, your game is garbage, and here's 100 reasons why. It's like, no, here's 5 things. These are my top 5. Let's see if we can get these ironed out. And then we circle back to maybe a few more that are not so critical, right? So I'm hoping that in the voice chat, they're not getting hit with a non-critical thing, or getting hit by the non-critical things. I do love hearing people's feedback, but sometimes people's feedback are, yeah, those are like, you know, putting the polish on your car after you cleaned it. You know what I mean? Yes, that'd be nice to add. But it's like there's other priorities. Like, I'd like to make sure they get a good, robust mount system in the game, taming system in the game. I want to make sure that we talked about NPCs in the game and possible quests in the game. Rather see that long before people start talking about cosmetic changes on armor sets. You know, because cosmetic changes on armor sets are a neat thing to do, but to me are not a high priority. And I'm just using that as an example, but there's many times in the past that I felt that people brought up some very valid, neat things that add to the game, but they're way down here on the priority scale because you got to get the fundamentals of the game done prior to adding the go pick Easter eggs for Easter weekend event. You know what I mean? It's like I do love seasonal events, but there's sometimes a publisher or a developer will do seasonal events and prioritize those over actually fixing game breaking issues. So you have to ask yourself, how much time does the developer have? They're a small team, so my thoughts are they're going to need to focus on priority stuff. And Targus they decide what's priority to them. Because if Targus says these are the 5 things that are priority to me, they could be on their bottom 20 list of what my priorities are, because they're making the product. They need to know what they need to do to make their product successful. My opinion, just like 1,000 other people's opinion, are valid. It's just how they take everyone's opinion and make their product superior to other products that are on the market. Because that's the other thing that I think this game has. It's got a little niche where you don't see anything like it on the market right now. Reign of Kings is still going. I saw it the other day on Steam because I want to actually look at it. But that player base should get aware of this game coming out, because I think everybody that's playing that game still, or trying to, should jump over to this game because it just offers so much more possibilities. Okay, so we went over that. The other thing I asked was, could we get this week's devlog? And I'm just going to go over it real quick here. This is talking about what they did last week, what they're doing this week, and what we might see in the actual Wednesday night's live stream that they do at 9 p.m. Eastern. So last week they finished the claiming guild system, finished the basic melee combat. We saw that in the stream. More work on the AI. AI is very important in a game like this, especially if you want to give it some natural feel. It's like the question is if you see a pig flying by you, that's fantasy world, right? Pigs walk. Pigs kind of do their own little pig thing, but if you see them flying across the map, then the AI is broken, right? So AI is really important, that the creatures, and mostly AIs, and this is going back to BioWare where I used to program Neverwinter Nights, is we would used to have the AI have a faction table. And certain factions, if you put a monster in faction 1, that meant that monster was hostile to everything around him. So no matter what came into his zone, he'd be hostile. Then we had like a faction 2 where he was only hostile to faction 4. So if a monster came by and they were set for faction 4, that's when he'd be hostile. So that's how we kind of broke it down. So that the players would have their own faction. And so like a player like me would be like faction 5. So when you're walking around the city, the guards would be friendly to faction 5, but not friendly to faction 1, which were goblins. So if the goblins wander in town, the guards would fend the goblins off. And the goblins were every faction they were aggressive about. And that was the easiest way of kind of doing our AI system back then. I imagine there's better ways of doing it now where there's more checks, because back then the processing power of computers were not that great, and you didn't want to bog your system down with the AI having to think too much, right? So it was just basic, like, oh, this guy's in faction 1, I should attack him. That's basically what we used to do. So now AI scripts, as you can see with the world today, you guys have conversations with AI bots, right? So their AIs, I'm thinking, this is an opportunity to do some really neat things with the AI script. Okay, so they wanted to add a server list so that you can find their servers, create web APT for RivenWorld Hive, to responsible for player IDs. This is all server related, connecting to their server, making sure that you have a valid copy of the game, connecting to the server. Add round-trip player server encryption so that the data is encrypted. This is all server-side. Okay. Okay. Change character models. This is one of the things I was thinking about, which I didn't see in any of the live streams, was the fact that it didn't look like they had a customizer, like a character customizer, like you see in Elder Scrolls. It has a good one. Even Guild Wars had an okay one too. And you know, you can customize what you look like: beard, red hair, blue eyes, big, skinny, short, woman, gender changes. So I haven't seen that, and I'm hoping that's what this means. Add 3D character system, claws and armor models. Obviously, you got to have that because people want to build some armor and put them on. And added a half block into the building. Now, Target's been asking for this for a long time. I'm glad that they've addressed it. I think Tarkus can do better building techniques when he has different block sizes. Just like Legos. I mean, come on. I mean, anybody who uses Legos, there are different size Legos to put a thing together. And if you just go to the basic fundamentals of what Legos do, and if you brought those Lego shapes into your world, win-win. I mean, because you're basically giving everybody the tools necessary to shore up and make sure their buildings look nice, right? So this week they're going to add range combat, and we might not see this implemented in the live stream that they're going to do on Wednesday, but we're going to go over it anyway. They're going to, implement character customization screen. I think I just went over that because I hadn't seen it. So here it is. I should have read this before I did my video. Okay, Tarkus. Improve guild management and add permissions per interactable objects. We talked about that in an early video. Server-side sync and player customization. Add more weapons. Add more crafting stations. Collect oil lamps and other light sources to the server. And add lane clam fuel and server in decay. Okay, so they're buttoning up what they need to prioritize before they do the beta. I mean, all this, obviously the server stuff needs to happen before they can turn the beta on, right? I mean, we won't see servers, and we won't be able to connect to them if they don't do that. And it seems like they know what they're doing when it comes to that. We invite everyone to come back and ask questions about RivenWorld or the closed beta. So yes, that's the dev logs. Here's their Discord. I'll add it in the my description below so that you'll have it. But this is really just the countdown to the beta. And I hope my next video will probably be Wednesday evening after the live stream. So this one is going to be the last one I do before that. Then I'm going to watch their live stream on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then I'll do a follow-up video on my thoughts of where their progress is and what we're probably going to expect during the beta, because we're going to probably see what we're going to be seeing for the beta in that live stream. Well, I hope you sign up for the beta. It's this weekend. I hope you can get on and give some great feedback. And I hope the devs are not too overwhelmed, because it is very generous for the dev to be in a voice chat. And that's generous of their time, and that's generous. That shows their commitment to their game. I hope that they're not overwhelmed by the amount of attention people are going to, things that people are going to say. I think everybody's opinion is valid. I think everybody has a right to say whatever they need to say. And I think maybe them doing some sort of form at the end of the beta where people can fill out a form and then just write in a form kind of letter like they did the sign up. Then people can just add what they want that way. There's multiple ways of doing it. Again, I like to do the video model because I've always found that puts eyes on the issue. And then if people don't agree with my video, then we can have that discussion. We can have an open dialogue about what is it you don't agree, or is it just the fact that I showed you how to beat the system and the devs need to fix something, right? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure that this game comes out of the gate with as many with a good future possible. With the fact being is that it doesn't come out of the gate with a crap load of negative reviews. I think this game has great potential, and I think if they do things right and they hear what people are telling them, which I think they are, then they'll come out with great reviews, and then you get a great player base, and then the game becomes very enjoyable. All right, well, thank you for joining me. This has been the Tarkus Zone.